Hi everyone, it's David Wheeler at Wycombe Wanderers and you're listening to the Wycombe Wanderers Show.
Welcome to the latest edition of the Wycombe Wanderers Show. This week we'll look back at two draws, both at Adams Park. We'll feature the games against Morecambe and of course Port Vale on Tuesday. We've got a double match debrief with Phil on the way. We'll hear the thoughts of Keith Ryan as well, who was on co-commentary duty on Tuesday night as well. We'll look ahead to the visit of Walsall, that also at Adams Park on Saturday in the first round proper of the FA Cup. We'll get the thoughts of JDT as well, the vice chair of the Wycombe Wanderers Ex-Players Association, on various memorable cup ties involving ex-players as well. We'll hear from manager Gareth Ainsworth too, also looking ahead to that game. Plus, we'll catch up with Emma Newberry from Wycombe Wanderers Women to find out how they're getting on at the moment at their new home. They've been in FA Cup action recently themselves and are doing, well, they're at the bottom of the table, to be honest. But Emma was the player of the match in the last game against Abingdon last weekend. So it'd be great to catch up with her as well. But first, on your regular edition of Wanderers News, we'll bring you the latest from Phil. We've got a double match debrief, as I say, starting with the draw against Morecambe, which was a family day, you might remember, and brilliant to see so many people at Adams Park, perhaps in some cases, seeing the game for the first time.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Really lovely to see over 1,300 people that maybe perhaps wouldn't have been there normally, enjoying all the festivities before the game. In the car park, great atmosphere, and really great to hear them during the game as well, getting behind the team and waving flags and doing all sorts as well. Hopefully they had a really great day and we see some of them again, or in fact all of them again. It'd be lovely to see everyone back down at Adams Park. But yeah, it was wonderful to see the town coming together.
It's something really nice, isn't it? We spoke to Joan, who was a supporter who'd been along. Last time she'd seen Wycombe was at Lokes Park and sort of obviously, I guess, heard about what's going on at the moment with the team and how well they've been doing over late, and really great to... And she was saying as well, you can't beat just sort of the live atmosphere of supporting your local team.
Exactly. If you can get to the games, then there's nothing that replaces it. The excitement, you can see everything. There's not a bad seat in Adams Park. But there's also the community side of it as well, and coming out and getting to speak to people, and for maybe you wouldn't necessarily get to see during the week or even would know about. I often wonder what communities would be like if you took their football clubs away from them, because the bars and the clubs around Adams Park or in Adams Park, like the Caledonian, etc., and the village. You get people from the community, from all walks of life, all different kinds of people who all come together under the one banner of Wycombe Wanderers, which is a great way for all sorts of different people to get together and have a chat. And I think in this day and age, that's really, really important. So I often wonder what society would be like if you removed football clubs out, because there's not many other things in town that really replicate that kind of thing. So I think, football's great and it's a great reason to come, but there's all sorts of other reasons to come to Adams Park as well, and that's one of them.
No, definitely. And onto the game itself, you really felt that that should have been a game where 3 points could have been the outcome.
Yes, looking at the start, Morecambe bottom of the table, struggling, and yeah, you look at it and think, well, that should be 3 points. And a lot of fans would say if Wycombe have got any serious aspirations of getting into the top six and getting back up into the Championship, then these are the sorts of games you've got to win. So a frustrating day with the result, because 1-1 against the team, like we just said, they were coming into it really fighting. But they're the tricky team sometimes, Colin. And I thought Morecambe were full value for their point as well, because they hit the post a couple of times. As well, and they had a penalty shout turned down. Yes, Wycombe had their issues with the referee as well, with a disallowed goal from Sam Vokes in the first half, and the one late on too with Brandon Hanlon. But yeah, when he boiled it all down, I thought maybe the point was a fair result across the 90, which was tough to take, because Wycombe at home with a big crowd behind them as well should have really won that game.
And obviously the officials don't have the benefit of VAR or the ability to go over it over and over again. But many fans after that game on Saturday were saying, what on earth was wrong with Sam's goal?
Yeah, it was mystifying. Second time in a week, really. It happened against Cambridge as well. And the disappointing thing from my point of view was that no one appealed in the Morecambe defence. Even the defender that Sam Vokes was alleged to have fouled, he just looked really gutted that he let the goal in. He didn't feel there was any sort of foul play involved in the build-up. And look, we all watch Match Today in the Premier League, and we've seen what VAR has done to the game. Personally, I'm not a fan of it, and I think you can either have one or the other. So I don't like VAR. So the flip side of that is you have to accept the inconsistencies sometimes and the vagaries of some refereeing decisions. They're human beings. They see it at game speed. They don't get the benefit of the replay. The assistant on the far side offered no insight and didn't flag for an incident. The referees called it as he's seen it. They go onto the pitch to get these decisions right. They make thousands of decisions per game. It's not an easy job, but it means it is frustrating, and it is something that we as fans will talk about afterwards and pick apart when we do see the replays. We can only, I suppose the only thing we can do is lobby the referees to make sure that they're as professional as they can be, they're as fit as they can be, they're in the right positions. And again, his positional sense for the decision was pretty good. It's just one of those you have to chalk up and think, well, is it the old cliche, evens itself out over the season? I mentioned the penalty that Morecambe didn't get. That I've seen the still photograph of JJ's arm raised up with the ball hitting it, and if that was a VAR decision, that's a penalty. So maybe it evened itself out in the game. Who knows?
Karma.
Yeah, and I think a few days on, people get het up, don't they, afterwards, and they get frustrated and excited. That's why football's important, and it's important that fans can do that. But a few days on, you look back and reflect on it and think, well, maybe that's balanced itself out. We'll see. Maybe we'll get an outrageous decision in our favour this Saturday. Who knows?
Could well happen. It would add to the romance of the cup, wouldn't it? Or magic
Exactly.
of the cup. Both could happen simultaneously. I don't know what happens if magic and romance happens at once, but it would be quite special. Well worth going to, I'd say. Although to occur when Walsall are about seems unlikely. Anyway, we'll move on to that. But another source of frustration for fans seems to be the defensive errors that have crept in recently, and of course that happened again on Tuesday.
Yeah, Port Vale 2-2 and 2 goals, really defendable goals from a Wycombe point of view. They've come from set pieces, which will really disappoint Gareth Ainsworth. And it's funny because, you look at the hallmark and the characteristics of a Gareth Ainsworth Wycombe Wanderers side down the years, and it's, being really good at set pieces, both defensively and offensively. We had 13 odd corners, I think, on Tuesday and didn't score. And we let 2 goals in from set pieces, which hugely disappointing, but especially when you couple into the third goal that Cambridge scored against Wycombe, which was from a corner as well. And it's weird, isn't it? It's cyclical. You see teams up and down the divisions go through stages of like, oh, they can't defend set pieces, they can't do this. And then all of a sudden they tighten up again. Wycombe are in a real rut at the moment in terms of conceding soft goals, and it makes it really difficult. It doesn't take a genius to work out if you let in 2s and 3s and at home during games, it makes it difficult to win those games, and this has been proven in this little run that Wycombe have had recently. I think it's things that they can sort out. It's been tough, I think, in terms of the nature of the defence. In there's been changes. There was a change during the game on Tuesday with Chris Serino coming off injured, but I thought Jack Grimmer defended really well, especially in open play against Ellis Harrison. But yeah, there's. I'm sure that the coaches are working really hard on this, because if they can eradicate those out of the game, then Wycombe are scoring some excellent goals from open play, something that they didn't used to do in recent times and relying on set pieces. So if they can tighten up at that end and keep going at the other, then things will be looking good, especially when the injured players return.
Annis's goal was quite special, wasn't it? And also really nice to get Lewis Wing on the score sheet as well.
Yeah, Lewis Wing, second goal in 7 days, both from outside the area. And, we've known that he's got that ability, and it's really nice to see that come to the fore. And Anis Mehmeti, well, running out of words to describe him, really, because what a goal that was. I mean, just pure power from outside the area, but the run to get in there was magical as well. And, I've said it before and I'll say it again, it's a joy to watch week in, week out. But as sublime as that is, the frustration comes from the other end, and that's what Gareth Ainsworth was saying to me after the game on Tuesday.
We've got to defend set pieces better. There's 4 set pieces now in 3 games against, and if you keep conceding set pieces, you give yourself mountains to climb in games. And we've scored 2 good goals tonight. Arguably one of ours is a set play. Lewis Wing's strike from a free kick, but. We did more than enough tonight to win the game, but unfortunately you can't defend like that. It's middle of the 6-yard box. There's a free header. But we never get that from our corners, and you're asking for trouble if you let that happen. So we'll be working on those without a doubt. And it was a scrappy game, I thought we played really well on Saturday against Morecambe and created, especially first half, numerous chances, but nothing really clear cut. And then today, again, nothing clear cut, but we always looked a threat, and I think we saw some of the tired legs as well, which probably we're going to have to change up for Saturday's game against Walsall. But no, I'm proud of the boys. Just defending those corners would have been spot on tonight, because it was always going to be a scrappy game. Port Vale are fighting to stay in this league. They've got promoted last season. They've come, they're big, they're strong, they go long, they go into Harrison, who won a lot of flicks, and Chris Farino picked an injury up in the first half, which didn't help things. And we've got to make sure that we'll learn from this tonight, and we're more adaptable when these set pieces come in.
Was the timing of that Chris Farina injury sort of critical with that first corner as well, the first goal that Port Vale scored in first half injury time, because he picked up a knock just prior to it?
No, he picked the knock up about 15 minutes earlier, and I think it's probably a lesson for everyone. It's a brilliant fault if he's tried to soldier on, but if people aren't fit, you've got to get off the pitch and let someone else take over. But Chris is a phenomenal player. He's going to play at the top 2 levels without a shadow of a doubt for me. I think he's an unbelievable prospect, this football club has got. But he'll learn again tonight. He's a great kid. I love him to bits, and we'll make sure that we get him fit before he plays again. I think it's just a whack. I don't think it's anything, the twist or a sprain or anything like that. So I think he'll be short turnaround. But no, it was one of those frustrating nights. The first corner is, I think there's a shot that hits somebody in the chest, and they do an overhead kick that gets. Yeah, honestly, I want to have a look at this and find out if something's against us. It looked like we might have been able to have a penalty as well second half, or people are saying it's just outside the box. Either way, the referee didn't give that, and that's another chance to score. But it's just going that way at the moment. But we're not losing games. It's really important. I think that's the last 6. We've only lost 1, which is a good record to have. And if we can just turn these draws into wins, we'll start climbing that table.
The introduction of Gareth McCleary made a big difference with 10 minutes to go. Was there maybe a slight regret of not doing it earlier? Yeah,
definitely. I probably wish I had thrown him on a little bit earlier, but you always think you're going to get in the game and you're going to get something out of the game. But I didn't see the set piece and the free header coming, and I probably would have introduced him even earlier if I knew that was happening. But no, you look at hindsight, and everyone's got a great degree in that after the game. I'm sure plenty of people would have told me what team to pick and what to do after the game, but not many before.
Really nice to hear Gareth speaking so nicely about Chris Farina as well, who's performed. He's really sort of grown into that position, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's been a really good lad to get to know here as well, because he's very humble, he's very driven, and he's just getting better and better on the pitch, isn't he? Hopefully he's okay from that knock on Tuesday, because a big player for Wycombe in every sense, both up front set pieces and defending set pieces as well. But he's really good at the game, his tackles. He's really coming good, and what a wonderful advert for the development squad. And I'm sure he'll make this club a bit of money in the future, but it's one to enjoy while he's here at the moment. But yeah, really good to watch him develop and learn the game.
And another home game coming up, obviously, this weekend. And as we joked earlier, a great opportunity to experience possible magic and romance.
Well, indeed, FA Cup magic and romance.
Oh, and fever, of course. FA Cup fever, you might catch that. Yeah,
well, yeah, exactly. That could be doing the rounds as well. But yeah, I mean, with Walsall in town, possibly not. It's not, with due respect to Walsall, first round draw. It's a winnable game for Wycombe, but it's a team we've played in the league a few times. For me, the romance or magic would be us going to one of our old non-league foes, maybe to kind of revisit some of the glory years of the 80s, perhaps. But yeah, I mean, that would have been tricky for Wycombe, because there would have been the Giants in that situation, but it would have been nice to roll the clock back and see some romance and magic. This one has a feel of a kind of a routine lower league game. Of course, round 2 is the prize. Wycombe can be in the hat if they can dispatch Walsall. Recent memories of Hartlepool, the draw away and then losing at home in the replay in the first round, not great, but you haven't got to turn the clock back too far for the wonderful game at the old White Hart Lane, and Spurs as well at Adams Park during the pandemic era, and Villa as well, home draw and a replay at Villa Park. So Wycombe have tasted those magical moments in recent history, and then 20 odd years ago the magical run to the semi-finals. So it'd be nice, wouldn't it? It feels that with Wycombe's sort of jittery start to the season, the stop-start nature of the results, a cup run would be wonderful, wouldn't it? But let's see what happens on Saturday. Walsall won't be easy by any stretch of the imagination. And hopefully it'll be a really, really good game. And then the second round, we can get all the romance and magic there if we get there.
Sorry, Walsall. It does feel a bit as well like, we're going into the game in good form in that, you heard Gareth mention there just one defeat in 6, which is fairly decent when you look at it that way.
Yes, indeed. Although we've drawn a few, and I don't think Gareth will be looking for a draw on Saturday because that would mean the replay and an extra game. But yeah, we go in good form. I think he will use the opportunity to bring some younger legs in as well, and that would be exciting as well. A lot of fans saying, wouldn't it be great to see Soleil Kaikai and even in the league action as well? And it's a player that's got a really good pedigree. We haven't really seen the best of him at Wycombe Wanderers. Could this game be a catalyst for him to catch the eye and make himself undroppable for a league game? We'll see.
And really interesting that Brandon Hanlon coming on in midweek, just showing another, sort of attacking option there too.
Yeah, really good to see Brandon back fit and firing and looking strong again as well. And all those hallmarks that we know that he had before his injury. He adds something else for Wycombe Wanderers. He's got that pace, that ability to roll a player, get behind, play off the shoulder. It's something that we've been missing a little bit of at the start of this season. And he was unlucky not to get on the score sheet on Saturday. So I'm sure he'll feature on Saturday too against Walsall. And if he can get a goal there, then hopefully that can be a start of a run for him.
Enjoy the game on Saturday. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, the magic of the cup. Can't wait.
Don't forget you can hear the whole match live on Saturday. Wycombe Wanderers against Walsall in the first round proper of the FA Cup. If you're not going or can't get to Adams Park here on 106.6 FM and on Wanderers TV as well, where you can also catch the full interview with Gareth that you heard a short while ago as well. If you were listening on Tuesday night, you'll know that Keith Ryan was alongside Phil for some post-match analysis.
Didn't really get going. The goals, brilliant goal from Mehmeti in the first half, and then an equally good strike from Wing in the second half to get our goals, but we could never really add on the goals that we got or the leads that we had. So and to be fair to Port Vale, they came and they worked really hard. The most disappointing thing is, you're right, we conceded from 2 corners, which I think you would say, and I'm sure Gareth would say, is very unlike a Gareth Ainsworth side. So probably have to have a look at that, maybe have a look at the videos and see what we can do better in that regard. But chance for chance, I think, is probably the right result.
I think what was exciting for me was when Wycombe changed their approach, and maybe, Keith, it could have been something they could have done a bit earlier.
I think so, yeah. I mean, you've got some really talented boys on the pitch there, and in the latter stages of the game, I felt we were getting it down, getting it wide, getting good quality balls in the box, and maybe if we'd have done that a little bit earlier, things might have been different. But can't deny that the second goal, a cracking goal, came from a long ball and a knockdown, a fantastic finish, and Mehmeti's goal in the first half was cracking. But as you said, you've just summed it up really well, Phil. Port Vale came here with a game plan. They worked their socks off. They've got some good players, and we said it in commentary that they've played the loan market really well, and it was probably a fair result on reflection.
FA Cup next for Wycombe, is that a nice distraction from the league at this point?
I always feel it is, yeah. I mean, if you're in a cracking run of form, then you probably want to play league games. But I think with a stuttering start now that Wycombe have had, it will be nice. It'll be nice to go up against, you say, Walsall, who are in the league below. And hopefully get a cracking win. Get some, maybe make some changes. He's probably had to rely really heavily on some of these lads. Maybe freshen the side up a little bit. Tinker with formation as he did tonight. And just you never know that something might come out of that. But always I feel it's important to get on a run of winning games. So regardless, he'll want to go there and put on a good show and get the win.
Online, on Radio Player and on 106.6 FM. This is Wycombe Sound.
Still to come on this week's edition of the Wycombe Wanderers Show, we'll hear from manager Gareth Ainsworth. We'll also catch up with Emma Newberry from Wycombe Wanderers Women, who was the player of the match in their previous fixture. You'll think that's something we covered, wouldn't you? we don't. First, however, let's look ahead to the visit of Walsall in the first round of the FA Cup, or should I say look back, as it's a competition which holds many memories. Of course, 2001, that fantastic day out at Villa Park against Liverpool, Keith Ryan scoring that goal. Loads of other memories as well for ex-players and indeed managers, and those of us that remember as well. So we've been catching up with JDT, the Vice Chair of Wycombe Wanderers Ex-Players Association, to share his thoughts and memories on the competition.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was the most phenomenal cup run, and I have to say Gareth Ainsworth would have to do pretty well for his side to get anywhere near that. I mean, it was completely and utterly unexpected, let me just tell you, because, I mean, they started off against Harrow Borough. That's pretty exotic, and they won that one in November of 2000, and it looked like, well, just another game. They went on to play Millwall. Millwall were doing well at that stage, and they absolutely shocked them, and got some very bad publicity from the Millwall manager, who accused Laurie Sanchez's side of doing all sorts of things. But they just carried on. They played Grimsby, and it's not exactly exotic, is it? Harrow Borough, Millwall, Grimsby, but then suddenly in the fourth round they got Wolves, and I don't know whether you can remember, or the listeners can remember, but we had a lot of snow then, and the snow was cleared off the pitch by supporters, aided, of course, by the great Jim Gardner on his tractor, and that work resulted in a 2-1 victory over Wolves. And we thought, wow, this is getting great. And then who do we draw in the next round? Wimbledon. They had a certain guy called Ainsworth playing for them. Don't know what happened to him. And it was an absolutely amazing 2 ties. 2-2 in the home game. And it was 2-2 after extra time, and went to penalties. And the penalties just went on, it seemed, till the middle of the night. Alan Parry was doing the commentary for TV, and you can imagine what he was like. Anyway, they won that one on penalties, which was probably one of the most exciting games that I've ever seen Wycombe Wanderers play. And then, of course, we came to Leicester City, and Wycombe didn't have any forwards. And Alan Hutchinson, my dear colleague from the Ex-Players Association, was secretary at that particular time. And he said to Laurie Sanchez, well, I'll put a bit on, that this is what it was then, teletext, and say, anybody got any players, strikers, that are eligible for the Cup? And Laurie kind of was fairly sanguine kind of guy, kind of raised his eyebrows. Anyway, of course, who pops up but Roy Essendoe? And of course, in only the way that the Cup can be, Essendoe scores this great goal against Leicester City. And suddenly, unbelievably, Wycombe Wanderers, little Wycombe Wanderers, are in the semi-finals of the FA Cup. And who do they play? Alan Parry, eat your heart out, his team, Liverpool. And that game, of course, at Villa Park, that goes down in the annals as well. My namesake, Martin Taylor, was actually the Wycombe hero that day because he pulled off some magnificent saves. And remember, this was a Liverpool side that were in their pomp. They'd won the European Cup. They were one of the sides, not of just England or Great Britain, but of Europe. And 5 minutes from time, up pops Keith Rhino and lobbed the ball into the net, 2-1, all to play for. It wasn't the fairy tale finale, but what an absolutely fantastic run. So that's the kind of run that the current team have got to try and surpass.
And reaching the third round for the first time in the club's history was very special. We've been fortunate enough to speak to some players who featured on those ties as well.
Well, I was very lucky then because I'd left the Bucks Free Press and gone north to pursue my journalistic career, and I'd just joined BBC local Radio Cleveland, and I was covering Middlesbrough at the time. And it's quite strange. I went in the day of the draw because I had to write a ghost column for Jack Charlton, who was the Middlesbrough manager. And I said to him, "Have you heard the draw?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Well, you've got Wycombe Wanderers away." "Who are Wycombe Wanderers?" And I said, "Well, they're the top side in the Isthmian League." And, "Oh, well, that's all right then." I said, "Well, I haven't finished yet." And he said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, you know the pitch at Lokes Park, it's called. It slopes 10 feet from side to side." "Ah, Taylor, off," he told me. He wouldn't believe me. He would not believe that was the case. Now, Jack was a very laid-back manager. He left his coaches to coach, and he went off and did his fishing. But he was there, as Brian Clough was, and later on Martin O'Neill. He was a man that was there on the day. I travelled down with the team to Lokes Park, and it was a really strange feeling for me, covering Middlesbrough at the time, but Wycombe Wanderers were my boyhood club, the club that I'd played for, the club that I'd reported on, and we're in the third round for the very first time. Now, Middlesbrough at that stage were top of what is now the Premier League, but the old First Division. They were actually top of that division. They've got a really good team, some great players in it. Willie Madron, John Hickton, David Mills. I can name that whole team. We pulled up at the ground and we got out, and Jack Charlton walked in, looked at the pitch, came up, and he grabbed me by the scruff of the neck and said, "You weren't in line, were you?" And I said, I told you, Jack, I told you. Anyway, of course, they got a hell of a shock because, as we all remember, and as we keep playing virtually every other dinner, Alan Phillips could have actually won that game for Wycombe Wanderers. Terry Reardon free kick, Alan Phillips free header on the far post. Well, free header. John Hickton was holding his shirt a bit, but anyway, and Alan put it, I would think, 2 inches past the post. Jim Platt nowhere in goal. Anyway, Jack Charlton was most magnanimous. Afterwards, in the dressing room, in front of the TV cameras, he went in and congratulated all the Wycombe team, Brian Lee and everybody, and said, well done, lads. You did really well. You gave us hell of a fright, but we're going to give you a real tousing up at Ayresome Park. Well, 3 days later, Brian Lee, who'd had to ring round various players to ask them, could you get time off work to travel up to Middlesbrough? That's the state of play as it was then. Anyway, he cobbled together his team. They went up there, and I'm sat up in the gantry doing my radio stuff, and it's 0-0 into the last minute of the game. I mean, Wycombe got quite a tousing. John Maskell probably played the best game of his life. He made some magnificent saves. And John Hickton, who became a very good friend of mine, was a star centre forward for Borough, said to me many years later, God, that goalkeeper, he should have been playing professional football, and he certainly should have been an amateur international, because the mask was absolutely fantastic. But, there again, so were Alan Phillips, Keith Mead, all of the Wycombe players, 0-0 anyway. And then in virtually the last kick of the game, David Armstrong scored what turned out to be the winner. Now, Brian Lee, in typical Brian Lee fashion, said afterwards, and he was quoted as saying, "Thank goodness they scored in the last minute, because if it had gone to extra time, we would have conceded 6, because they were absolutely out on their knees." So again, another magnificent, cup story involving Wycombe Wanderers.
And there just seem to be so many. You mentioned the glamour of Harrow Borough, but it doesn't seem to matter whether it's a top team from the top division or lower down. Everyone seems to have their sort of favourite or most memorable cup experiences.
Well, the thing is that, because they're drawn in the early rounds, there are some kind of pretty average kind of games. And I think it's disappointing that for Walsall, the top stand is closed. They're not expecting a big crowd. I mean, FA Cup crowds used to be the top of the season. And of course, in Gareth's day, we had Aston Villa came down here in 2016 for a third round tie, over 9,000 people there, 20,000 for the replay, which Wycombe lost. But of course, the big one was Tottenham Hotspur, and that was in 2017. And again, Colin, what a game that was. I mean, Tottenham with all the star names, the Pochettino, the charisma of that as a man, as a manager, and Wycombe go there, not underdogs, they weren't even dogs, and they go into injury time and they're 3-2 up, and I know we lost 4-3, but that was just again a real thriller, and this is what kind of sustains fans of clubs like Wycombe, that they can draw teams like Tottenham and Middlesbrough as they were then, and Aston Villa as they were. If you look at the recent games, we've got Leatherhead, Solihull Moors, Tranmere Rovers, Hartlepool United, not the kind of teams you want to pull out of the hat necessarily, but there's always the opportunity, isn't there? And that's what Gareth will be saying to his boys, I'm sure. Look, we're iffy in the league at the moment, as you would be without Gape, without Scowen, without Thompson, without Tafazoli. That's not really a surprise, is it? But we've got a chance here to go into the hat, and who knows where that will end.
And you mentioned Rhino's historic goal against Liverpool. Great to hear him on co-commentary with Phil this Tuesday against Port Vale, and he was also at the game recently with Martin O'Neill and Keith Scott as well. Great to see them all together.
It absolutely was. The boys of the 90s hold a special place in my heart because I'd come back to the area by then and was able to do some videos for the club and work behind the scenes. And in 1991, when Wycombe got to the FA Trophy final, which was the first visit to Wembley since 1957, the Amateur Cup final, we went on the coach, Alan Hutchinson, myself, Alan Parry, and I did a video, a behind-the-scenes day, like it used to be in the FA Cup when the cup final started on TV at 10 o'clock in the morning, and they were visiting the players in their hotel, and then in the helicopter, I'll tell you that story in a second, coming to Wembley and all of that stuff. Well, we did exactly that with Wycombe. Martin O'Neill's first got a big run with the Wycombe Wanderers, but then you got the people like Rhino and Scotty and Mark West, Paul Hyde in goal. So many, smashing players, and players who are still attached to us with the Ex-Players Association. And as you say, absolutely great to see. And I must make a plug here because you talk about Martin O'Neill, and I'll give you a little exclusive, Colin. I spoke to Martin last night, and Martin is coming to our dinner on November the 18th. Martin has actually got a book out, and he's going around the country. He started off at the exotic resort of Oswestry, and he's travelling to all parts of the globe, putting up his book. But he's going to come to the dinner, and we're going to give away some of his books, which he's going to autograph there on the spot to the individuals. And that will be fantastic. And we will talk to Martin about cup runs, and also some of those players you've just talked about there who have been involved in some of those involving Wycombe Wanderers over the years.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Steve, for your time.
Thank you, Colin.
Online, on Radio Player, and on 106.6 FM. This is Wycombe Sound.
Still to come on this week's edition of the Wycombe Wanderers Show, we'll hear from manager Gareth Ainsworth looking at his FA Cup memories and what the competition means to him, finding out what's the latest in terms of the preparations as well ahead of the visit of Walsall on Saturday in the first round proper of that historic competition. But first, as often on this programme, we like to feature the Chair Girls, and they unfortunately went out the Women's FA Cup quite recently as well, and have been struggling in the league so far, bottom of the table currently, but it really is a season for transition. Emma Newberry is someone who's been at the club since 2015, one of the longest serving players, seen a lot of changes as well, but with the new manager coming in and his new ways of working and their new ground as well at Burnham, it's an exciting time to be involved.
We've had a fair few managers in my time, and we've got Carl in now and Dan, and he brought along with him Jamie, we've got Christian, we've got a whole new set of coaches and managers actually, so yeah, big transition, lots of new players, which is obviously good as well, to bring fresh players into the club. So, yeah, exciting times.
And has that meant a bit of a change in your role or position as well?
Yeah, because I've had to sort of prove my place again. With previous managers, obviously, they've got to know me and I've got to know them and they know sort of my abilities, but I was kind of starting from scratch all over again, which was a strange experience. And competition for places as well with new players. You know, we're still getting new players to train in sort of every other week. So it's really good. But yeah, the competition is high.
And it's been strange as well, because obviously you've had different league positions in the different seasons. Obviously the pandemic as well upset the seasons as well. But you know, one season it did seem to be doing really well in the league, and now a bit lower down, of course, and within the sort of season of transition, really.
Yeah, so with COVID, unfortunately, it put us out for a good couple of seasons. Like, we started the season and then it was null and void because of COVID impacting it. And a couple of seasons ago, we were actually in one of the finals for the Cup and we never got to play it because of COVID. So we were on track for sort of being third in the league as well, so doing really well. So that kind of has put us back a little bit. But good news, obviously, with COVID a bit more under control. We've had really great training sessions, training more often for longer as well, which has been helpful at our new ground. And yeah, the only unfortunate thing is our results at the moment for the first team, but I'm sure we'll get onto that in a minute.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, overall it seems like such an exciting time for women's football, you know, generally with the success of the Lionesses, but obviously locally as well. As you say, you've moved to your new home of Burnham, you've got a new coaching team in and a number of new faces in the squad as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's been a big transition, and I think half of the reason of why we sort of haven't taken all the points up for grabs is the transition of getting to know how we all play and the manager knowing who the starting 11 should be or what formation works best. So it's just really been a learning experience. So although on paper we are not doing as well as previous seasons, it's, in my opinion, the best it's been for a very long time. So I think it's just going to be a settling in period, and then I'm feeling positive about the rest of the season.
So what's the integration of the group been like? Because I know in previous seasons you've prided yourself on, you know, being like a family really and so close. But I guess that must be tricky if new faces are coming in.
Yeah, do you know what? I'd say it's still the case because what's been really lovely about this season with Carl on board is that he's got us training and playing at the same venue, which is the first time we've ever had that at Wycombe Wanderers. So previously we've all sort of played at different pitches and our training sessions have been on the same night but very separate. And there's great sort of transition between teams, so there's elements of when the reserves will come join in with the first team football, or we'll mix up and we'll have a sort of in-house friendly. So although it is, obviously, we've got new people, we're getting to know everyone at training because we have Tuesdays and Thursdays, 2 hours each session, so 4 hours of the week we are together, and we like to do a lot of social stuff as well, getting down to Wycombe Wanderers games and things like that. So, yeah, although we're all new, we are bonding really well, which is good.
And something else which really stands out, obviously, is playing at Adams Park this season for the first time. That was in the FA Cup, of course. That must have been so special to be, you know, involved and something for the club as well.
Yeah, I mean, going down in history, first competitive game for the club, which is amazing. We've been lucky enough to play there a few times, but just not sort of in season and competitive match. So to have our first FA Cup game there and our first win was really, really good. Unfortunately, we did lose the next round of the FA Cup to Aylesford, and we did have to exit the FA Cup, but we're hoping for more games at Adams Park soon, which will be good.
You talked about the recent results, a bit disappointing, I guess, but how would you assess how the season's gone so far? Because it's still fairly early, of course.
Yeah, it is fairly early, and the only disappointing thing about our league this season is it's quite small. So actually, we all got together last night at training, we watched our VO footage from the previous Sunday, and we've actually only got 10 league games left of the season, which is ridiculous, only being early November. So 10 league games left. Unfortunately, we're out of the FA Cup, so there's no sort of cup games for us, but we just got to take our chances now that we have, and now that we've played a few teams away or at home on our next, obviously because we'll visit them again or they'll come to us, we sort of know what to expect a bit more. Like Carl hasn't met half of the teams before, and we've got some new teams in the league, so just trying to assess every season. You get different players in every team, so you think you know who you're about to go and compete against, and you get there and it's a complete different team. So I think it's a settling in period, 10 games to go. Hopefully we can get more points than what we did last season, which was, I believe we only got about 9 points last season.
Does that sort of surprise you in a way, that the kind of the different levels of the teams that you face? Because as you say, you think you've got the kind of measure of them, but then they sort of produce something a bit different.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of analysis within our training sessions. So what's been really great about Carl and Dan coming in is that they're really keen on analysing games. So we all wear the sort of fitness trackers, the GPS, so we can see how many minutes we've played, you know, what area of the pitch we've covered and things like that, and our performance. But as well as us wearing them, he films the games. So we analyse the games at a training session, and we talk about it, and then we build on it from there. So unfortunately our results have come from just key mistakes, and we let them back in the game. We haven't actually been the worst team at all. In fact, on Sunday we went 1-0 up, and unfortunately then gave away a free kick, or penalty rather, in the box, and they scored from it, and it was sort of, we let them back in the game, and that keeps happening. We keep giving them opportunities, but no one seems to give us those opportunities. So yeah, it has been tricky, and all that Carl keeps saying at training is that we've got to repeat things, work on it, so we know what to expect. And it might come across as a little bit boring, but if we can be predictable as players, we know exactly what we're going to do. And that's the issue. Sometimes we're not knowing what our next move is, and then we give it away.
And I guess as well, coming up this weekend, you've got Ascot, who of course are the league leaders, so that'll be a real test as well.
Yeah, so top of the table and bottom of the table clash. I think the pressure's on them, obviously, because they're top of the table, points up for grabs for both teams. Previously, we've played them. It's been a tough game. But as I said, teams change so much, we've changed so much in terms of our managers and our players, so who knows. But yeah, we're looking forward to it. It's also on our favourite style of pitch, of a 4G, which suits our way of playing, so we're looking forward to it. Hopefully get 3 points.
And as you say, there seems to be such a real feeling of positivity and so many pluses to kind of take from this group going forward.
Yeah, I mean, we're really positive. Although we've obviously had a few games where it hasn't gone our way, we stick together as a team, which is a really nice thing, which I've alluded to before. The real sort of like family feel. We pick each other up and we go again. Training, we work so hard. Our managers put on great sessions for us. And that's all we can do is keep training and keep trying to get better.
Great chatting to Emma Newberry from Wycombe Wanderers Women. We wish the Chair Girls all the best on Sunday against Ascot, who are currently top of the table, so a real top v bottom clash. Hopefully Wycombe Wanderers Women can climb up the table in the remaining league fixtures. As I say, we'll be featuring more of them throughout the coming weeks on this programme as well. But first, our regular chat with manager Gareth Ainsworth, who looks ahead to the visit of Walsall, and first reflecting on those two games against Morecambe and Port Vale, of course, at Adams Park. One defeat in the last 6, but frustration that some of those games, especially the last 2, could have been victories.
That's the frustration. I think we edged it on performances, but obviously you've got to defend your set pieces, and our last 4 goals have been set pieces conceded, and we've got to make sure we're better at that. I need to address this now because it's costing us. It's costing us 4 or 5 points there, which probably puts us within a point of the playoffs or something like that. Ridiculous, after the slow start we've had and everyone being a bit worried. It's a crazy game, isn't it? But one defeat in the last 6 is very, very much the form we want. But a couple of those draws turning into wins would be the ideal form, and that's what we need to do. Obviously, it's a sort of rest from the league this weekend with the FA Cup coming up, but Walsall will be big, and I don't want to lose a game to lower opposition in the league. We've done that, and that hurts. You've got to make sure that you're very competitive, and Mike Flynn will have his team really set up well. The big side, very big side again, which worries me at set pieces. But we've got to play what we believe is the right way, and try and get the ball into some dangerous areas, because when we do that, we're looking very dangerous, and some of the goals we've scored lately have been brilliant.
Are the defensive issues something that's quite easy to sort of fix, if you like?
Yeah, there's a mentality issue as well as a personal issue, but we'll be on it, Colin. Yeah, we need to make sure that we're solid. Teams will come here and now, and honestly, it's brilliant. It's a massive compliment. They'll play position football and territory football where they'll get set pieces. We used to do this. We used to do this against teams. We used to play the ball into positions where we'd get throw-ins and get corners, and we'd be that team that would score from them. I remember 5 years ago, people were saying we haven't scored from open play for 600 minutes or something. We seem to be scoring from open play regular now, and that's a sign of a good team. But we've got to now the other side, which is the nasty, horrible side sometimes, that teams will come and try and play against us. And I've got to be on that. We've got to be able to do both sides. The best teams do both sides, and that's one thing that we have to do.
And the attacking element must be something that does please you. As you say, you've scored some great goals of late, and also coming from different areas of the field as well.
Yeah, we work hard on the attacking. We've probably overworked on the attacking now, and we need to maybe work on that being a bit more solid, because we're going to score goals. We always do. But we're conceding too many, and especially from dead ball situations, where I want to make sure that the boys are in the mindset of thou shall not pass, and that's what we'll be working on the next couple of days before a team that will come and really put it on us.
And as you say, the Cup on Saturday, a game which I guess you go into as favourites.
Yeah, and we go into many games as favourites now. Again, showing where this club has come from. I can't remember being a favourite in a game for the first 5 years of management. But it's a real sort of coup that we are now a team that is recognised. And like I always say, one thing that will always be remembered for is we put ourselves on the map. Definitely, Wycombe Wanderers is now this team that people know. They know their name, they respect, and being favourites is rightly so. On Saturday, we're a league above. We have some great players in our team. We've a great future ahead for this club. And Walsall is a team I played for on loan once back in the Championship. They've got a good history. They have high expectations from their players, and Mike Flynn's a good manager. So we're going to be up against it. It's not a foregone conclusion by any stretch of the imagination. They will fancy themselves. They will fancy an upset in the FA Cup. I want to get to round 3. I know how much that means to these fans and these players even, but I want to make sure we're in round 3 come January and getting some decent sides and decent draws.
There is something really special about the Cup, isn't there? Obviously for fans, but also as players and yourself as manager and your own sort of playing time as well. There's something really special about being involved and hopefully, as you say, working your way through the different rounds.
It's the FA Cup. It's historically massive, I'm trying to tell Kane, my son, about it, and how much of an important game it is. I hate it where they put the FA Cup on a Tuesday night, the final, or a Sunday evening now. I want it that big day in May where everyone sits down and watches the FA Cup. It's the only football on TV, and the build up to it, that week build up and everything like that, and the FA Cup songs and everything. It's gone, and it really upsets me that sometimes, because it made it so special. And to me, it always will be special. I was a big Blackburn Rovers fan, and I know they won it a lot of times back in the early 1900s, and I was so proud of that, and yeah, we've won the FA Cup more times than you, and now I don't think it's recognised half as much as any other trophy. And there's probably the Premier League and the league titles and the Champions League that are all well above it, but back in the day, the FA Cup was everything, and I still feel like that, and call me a dinosaur of the cup, but I'd rather be that way and keep the magic about this FA Cup. And I'm lucky enough to go. I'll be going Bracknell on Monday night to watch Bracknell Ipswich, which is fantastic. I managed to get a ticket, which is extraordinary. But I live 10 minutes away from there, and I want to see that. I want to see that the faces on the people from Bracknell when Ipswich come to town, and that's what it's about. And so I'm not going to ever belittle this cup. There'll be no league debuts or cup debuts. if there is, there'll be a player who's ready to come in. It's not going to be, let's try some of these youngsters. Teams can do that, and fair play. Pep does it last night, and it works for him, doesn't he? Great goal from Lewis. But it's got to be special for us and special for the Wycombe people. And 2001 will live strong in the memories of Wycombe Wanderers, won't it? Semi-final, I'll try my best, but I'm not sure I can hit those highs again. But we'll give it all. We'll give it all on Saturday, definitely.
And do you say to your players, because I think the cup, especially, obviously, unfortunately, Ronnie Radford died this week, but that there are so many sort of occasions, aren't there, that people remember about sort of cup goals or things that have happened in the cup, and that could be one of your players. Yeah,
and that Hereford goal, Radford. I mean, just go down in history forever. And people don't remember that was one of the biggest shocks of all time, and Sutton United, I remember beating Coventry, I think, was it? And all these moments that have come up. I think that if I can instill a little bit of the magic of the cup into my players in the next couple of days, then not only have I won as a football manager, but I've won as a person as well, because that cup is magic. And like I say, I'm really proud of the history. We've got the oldest cup competition in the world.
Great to hear from Gareth. If you are going to Adams Park on Saturday, I hope you enjoy the romance, the magic, and FA Cup fever as well. Everything that comes with that tie with the visit of Walsall. If you can't get to the game, don't forget there's live commentary with Phil, and he'll have Brian Jeeves alongside him as well on 106.6 FM, and also, as mentioned, on Wanderers TV as well, if you can't get to the game. I hope you've enjoyed the show this week. Back next week, getting ever closer to the Wycombe Wanderers Ex-Players Association dinner as well, which is coming up on the 18th of November. Get your tickets for that. As heard, Martin O'Neill will be there, and he's got his autobiography coming out this month too, and you'll be able to get a copy of that signed on the night as well. So set to be pretty fantastic. If you aren't available for a 7 o'clock showing of this programme, don't forget there's a podcast version of it wherever you get your podcasts from. You can listen at your leisure. It's also on the Wycombe Sound radio player page on YouTube, apparently popular there too, and the last 4 episodes are on the Listen Again feature of the website, wycombesound.org.uk. That's wycombesound.org.uk. Have a great week. Up the Wick.